All right, we are live. All right,
Nice.
Lester, how's it going, man? How's the summer going?
It's been good so far. It's going too fast though. The summer is just it's already mid-June. It's like, where the hell is it gone?
I feel the same way. I just it just seems like I got super busy when like the weather warmed up, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm like, no, there's no way that it's almost the end of June. Which it's great. You're that much closer to football, but it's also like I would like some summer, but then my other piece of me is like it's too you were still to get out in this heat and build up a sweat, but it's like I don't want to like am I having a heat stroke? Like I don't know when it's that hot.
Yeah. Hey, I'm getting a little feedback on my end. Is that coming through to you too, or is it just me?
I do not have
It's a little bit of Mr. Roboto on your audio.
hmm,
Is that me or is that you? I'm not technically savvy at all.
let me pull myself out and put myself back.
You think that might be it? I don't know. We'll see. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's just me. We're waiting on JB to come back here because of the technical difficulties. I have zero technical know-how here, so hopefully we'll get him kicked in here and it'll sound good. If anyone out there is a technically savvy person, hit us up in the comments. Let us know. Oh, now I'm on the top chair over here. It looks like.
Oh,
Let's hear
so
how you
we
sound.
switched places.
We did switch places.
Yeah, for me, like it's left and right. So now
Okay.
you're on the left
Yeah.
now. This
Yeah.
is a little weird.
You do sound.
Throw our
It
whole
sounds
thing.
different.
Sound better?
Yeah, you do sound better. I don't know what it was
Well, I bought a cooling station for my laptop.
because it
And,
crashed
and
last time.
well, right. So I was a little
Yeah.
worried about it. And so anyway, I was running it. So it might have been that,
Okay.
which that sort of defeats the purpose of having a cooling station if I can't run it while we live stream. But
True.
we'll figure that out.
We will. We'll get it going.
All right. So I turned that off. I have the laptop open, but if I crash, I crash. You're gonna have to take it.
I'll take it. I'm good. I got some notes as well this time, so we're good.
I don't know why it's burning up. Like the laptop just seems to like to run hot. I have nothing else open right now though. It's just
Okay.
this. So
We'll get through it.
all
Quick
right.
show.
All right, cool. Well, you want to crank it up? You already pushed everybody to go subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're at like a little over 600. It'd be really cool if we get to 1,000 before the season. Got a lot of cool stuff planned. So please hit subscribe, and got some cool stuff that I'm putting out little promo videos. That was your idea.
I love the trailers. Those are cool.
Little promo trailers. I thought that it's kind of cool. It's podcast only. We're not doing video for the Hopium Den, but Lester's like, just cut together a little a little teaser, a little just kind of see what's what. Release it over the weekend. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. So it's been kind of fun. I've been kind of tracking down a little piece, and the international Hopium Den is out right now.
That's going to be fun. It'll be on Wednesday, right? It debut on the podcast channel.
Yeah, I'm trying to release them every Wednesday.
Nice.
It was a really fun conversation. I remember really enjoying having it. And then when I went back to edit, I was like, man, this was a really good crew. It's Heidi from Mexico. She's like big, she's like friends with Akeem Hicks on Twitter. Like they've gone back and forth multiple times, and she was great. She was super nice. And then Andrew Fitzpatrick, who's originally from Australia, came over here as an exchange student and got into the Bears through Devin Hester. Just thought that Devin Hester was like the coolest thing ever. So kind of a cool story into Bears fandom. And then Kieran, the Irish Bears show.
Irish Bears show, of course.
Yeah. So we had, Europe, Australia, Mexico, and it was really fun to kind of get their perspective on how they came into football and what it means to them and how they view things, which is just, a little bit different than maybe if you were born in the US or born, into fandom right away. And it's just kind of cool. I just really enjoyed that conversation, but that'll be up on Wednesday. And then I've got another episode on the next week. I think it'll be about Bears Twitter. I think that one's going to go next.
That'll be fun.
A couple of people from Bears Twitter. That's the topic that we're going to discuss. And then I've got a couple super fans lined up. And I'm working on one particular episode, trying to get somebody in the studio that I have not been able to nail down a time with yet, but that one's going to be a big one. And then a couple more episodes, and then I've got some other surprises up my sleeve. So it's been a fun series so far.
So you're still pulling guests in, and you're still working it.
It's mostly dedication. All in the can, but there's one. It's kind of what do they call that? Like the white whale or something.
Okay,
there's this kind of this big one that I'm going after, and haven't been able to get that in the can yet, but we'll
Nice.
get there. We'll get there.
It's coming.
So, but yeah, are you ready to go?
Yeah, whenever you're ready, let's rock.
Great. Welcome to Bear and Balanced. I'm Jeff Burkus, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by Lester A. Wiltfong Jr., the editor of that fine website. Lester, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It's a nice Monday night. It's nice weather here in the Midwest, so I can't complain.
Define nice weather, because it was like 99 degrees here in Iowa. So I don't know that I agree with that being nice.
I like it hot. I mean, I'd much rather be hot than cold. I know I'm from the Midwest. I live in Wisconsin now, but for me, I love when it gets in the 90s. It doesn't bother me. I just go out and do my thing, and I'm good with it.
You're a rare big man
That's true. That's true.
that likes that extreme heat.
I didn't like it when I played, but I like it now that I'm older and I can, go out and nice walk, jump in the pool, cool down a little bit. So it's all good.
Yeah, our mutual friend Ross Reed had a tweet the other day that said, like, I started training in this hot, humid weather and I actually like it now, and just gone on and on. And Bill Zimmerman and I are like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. Like, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. You got to stay in the air conditioning when it's that hot.
Yeah.
But Bears finished up their mini camp and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get into that. But I wanted to just spend a couple moments off the top and talk about the passing of Chicago Bears writer Moon Mullin. And I guess let me ask you, what was your interactions with Moon Mullin, if at all, or your personal history with that writer?
Just like a lot of fans, I mean, he was he was so consistent, when I first, really got into the Bears. I mean, he's been doing stuff about the Bears for decades. And, he was doing stuff in the Tribune, I believe. And then, I think Comcast had him for a long time. And, he's very active on Twitter for a long time as well. So he was just he was in the know. He's one of the guys where you knew if you went to Moon with a question or something on Twitter, it was no BS. He wasn't, he would actually, take some time and think about what he was going to say. And, there was no fanfare, I guess is the best way to put it, because, some guys in the media, it's the game to them. And with Moon, I never got that sense. Moon was really genuine with everything he did, and his spots on sports radio as well. Really good guy. Just it's tough. I mean, Bears media has lost some really tough guys the last few months.
Yeah, my one big experience with him was when I met you for the first time. I mean, obviously we've been working together for a long time, but we hadn't met in person. We all met up in the 2019 camp. There was a lot of really good feelings about that team, obviously coming off the 2018 season. And we booked it over to the bleachers, and we looked, hey, let's get up at the top here. And I sat down next to Moon, or he sat down next to me. I actually don't remember how it started. He might have sat down next to me, and I just introduced myself and started talking to him. And I talked to him for the entire practice.
You did, yeah.
We just sat and talked, and it wasn't me bothering him, because I would just stop. I'd ask him a question, and then I just kind of stop, and then he'd say, like, well, what story is he working on?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm kind of working on this idea. And he's like, well, that's fascinating. Toxic differential. I've never heard that before. Tell me a little bit more about that. And I'd explain, that statistic. And he was like, that's interesting. I haven't actually heard that before. I'm going to look into that. And then we just started going back and forth. And then I was asking the questions like, well, who's the most interesting guy you covered? What happened to this guy? Why did this guy leave? And he was pretty close with a lot of the guys. He was pretty close with John Fox. He was pretty close with Ryan Pace. He had a lot of inside information. And he, you could tell he was willing to peel me off a couple slices, which I found really fun. And he gave me a little nugget about Alshon Jeffrey. He had given me a little nugget about a couple other guys and maybe why they weren't signed, or why they went after this certain person. And then honestly, like, we both sat in the back and had some pretty serious reservations about Mitchell Trubisky together. And I thought, well, this is interesting. It wasn't very popular to say that out loud in the moment. But we both kind of had that talk where we're like, I just don't know that I see it yet. So had a good mind for football, but also was just super kind to all of the a writer on a blog. He didn't care. He was interested in my story ideas and wanted to know more. And just a super nice guy. It was just an incredible experience for me, and especially someone who, is this not my full-time job? This is not what I went to school for. This is just something I'm passionate about. And he talked to me like I was working for the Trib. Like he was willing to just have that same level of conversation with me, which I really appreciated.
You see those stories all about Moon all over the place, and it's cool to see. Like I said, how many lives you really touched, and and then with cancer, of course, man, cancer is just it's so brutal. I mean, if you can, give to cancer research, if it's out there, I mean, definitely do something with it, because they've done a lot of strides in the medical community for it, but man, I mean, we all know someone who's lost a life to cancer. It's just it just sucks.
Yeah, and like you said, Bears writing community lost some really good people,
Yeah.
Recently, and that makes it all that more difficult. And actually, I have another thing that's associated with that. But not yet. Let's move on, and as always, we always start with Trench Tribute. We're going to try to do the categories tonight.
Yeah, we can do it. We got this.
Try to get back into our swing of things, right? Like, Bears are in training camp. They're getting into the best shape of their life. We got to do the same thing. So we're gonna try to go through the categories here. So Trench Tribute, and I will start off. I'm going to give my Trench Tribute to Braxton Jones. 5th round rookie, taking a lot of reps with the first team at left tackle. And I just want to acknowledge something. Like, just because he went in the 5th round doesn't mean that this guy isn't a guy that can play right away, right? There was a pretty deep class. There was a ton of people in this class. Maybe this is a guy that in a normal year would get drafted, say, in the 3rd round. It's a smaller school guy, so sometimes that happens where those guys get pushed down a little bit. But this is a guy who had some really good athletic scores, particularly in the speed and agility stuff. He's a little bit smaller than a lot of other left tackles, his colleagues, but he's not small. He's not a giant, but he moves really well, which is exactly what Ryan Poles is looking for. And, we've talked all offseason about, like, well, are they going to move Tevin to right tackle? Are they going to keep him at left? Is Larry Borum going to be good enough to take one of those spots? And here all of a sudden, Borum and Jenkins are over on the right side, at least on the practices that were reported on. And here's Braxton Jones off here at left tackle, taking the snaps with the first team. So does it matter? Will he start on the first day? I don't know. Will he, be a good player if he does start? I certainly don't know. Things will change when the pads come on, and we'll get to see for real. But this is about as good as your career can start at the minicamp to be able to crack the first team with reps.
I had a feeling you're going to go Braxton Jones, because that's the way I went too. I mean, it's been the story of the OTAs of minicamp. Starting at left tackle, yes, it's just shorts and shells. There are no pads yet, but that's big. I mean, that shows he understands the mental part of his job. If he didn't know what he was doing, the Bears wouldn't have put him out there. So now it's up to him. Now, once camp starts in July, the physical part he has to show. But like you said, he's not a mammoth tackle. I mean, he's a big tackle. He's still big. I mean, he's a pro lineman. But the one thing he does have that's big is he has long arms. He has those left tackle wingspan, what you want to have there. And he talks about it at his press conference. He is just now learning how to throw his hands. That's something he didn't do a lot. You mentioned he went to a small college. I'm sure he got good coaching, but it's not pro level coaching. So they're getting up to speed right now. Now he's learning how to use his hands. He's starting to go against a guy like Roquan Smith. He's seeing speed now against him, and that's going to help him out. Running with the ones is great. It's great competition for him. And when the whole thing with Tevin Jenkins came out that he's running with the twos, I still think at the end of the day, once camp gets going, he'll eventually get that spot back. His college tape was too good, unless there's something physical going on with him. I think he gets that spot at right tackle back. But to me, the story of everything is Braxton Jones, the rookie, at left tackle. So that's why I wanted to make sure. I had a feeling you're going to go that way, but he's my guy too. He's my Trench Tribute, Braxton Jones.
Well, let me just kind of probe that a little bit about learning to use your hands and smaller level, and maybe not getting that coaching. And I think that it's you're not ragging on the offensive line coach at smaller schools. It's they're used to a level of talent at those schools, and they teach a certain way with the talent that they expect to have. And you get a guy that, hey, this guy might be a pro. Like this guy might play on Sundays, and it's just not the techniques that they teach, right? It's
Yeah.
not what they drill. It's not, they're trying to get these guys ready for Saturdays. They don't necessarily care about Sundays
Yeah.
when they're trying to win games on Saturdays. So it's not like it's it's derogatory in any sort of way. But you see that a lot. You see that especially from a small school where a guy just needs to come in and learn a little bit new, the more professional technique. Different pass sets. A lot of guys will come in, say like a defensive lineman will come in with really good speed rush off the edge, but he doesn't have any counter moves. Well, you get to the pros and it doesn't really matter if you have a good speed rush and if that's all you have. You have to be able to have more, it's like a pitcher, right? You have to be able to have another pitch. And if you don't have that, then like you're not going to be successful. It's a lot of that's with offensive linemen. You're used to maybe seeing one type of rush or, you have one type of set. You don't really know how to do the other one. Well, you're going to get beat if you really only do that as a pro. So, it's just interesting to see that they have that much confidence in him this early on to push it. And I'm all for it. This year is a figure out what you got year. So if he's good enough to put on the field, I'd love to see him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the different sets that he has, because you always hear about how a D lineman has different tools in his toolbox as far as his rush, but you don't always think of the flip side where an offensive lineman has to know how to counter all those things that he's doing. So he's learning that. And I think, by the fact that the Bears trust him enough to put him in there now, again, he's not facing, the live stuff yet, but they trust him enough to run with him now. That's good for Braxton Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into jump sets and vertical sets at some point.
Get Brandon Thorne on for that. That's
great. Let's just say like I'm too old to demonstrate it, and I don't want to get made fun of. Well, let's move on. So we're on the same already. We're already in midseason form. We're on the same page already. So let's get to the tweet of the week. So I'll start. This is from the Chicago Bears at Chicago Bears. If anybody follows them, this is a tweet that they put out on June 16th. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. On this day, 52 years ago, we lost Brian Piccolo. Today, all 90 players are wearing 41 to honor him. So they had a practice where every player had a number 41 jersey on and in honor of Brian Piccolo. And they were going to do it 2 years ago, but COVID got in the way. But they kept it on the calendar, right? And I just, again, another person who's lost to cancer, certainly way too early for anybody, cut down in the middle of his career. And obviously Brian's Song being the very famous movie that's made about this and his relationship with Gail Sayers, who we also lost recently. I just think as someone who appreciates the history and this historic franchise, I just think it's really cool that they do stuff like this and that they keep those players' memories alive. And even something as simple as this on the anniversary of his death, they do something like this at a mini camp. It's just that they're always embracing the history of the franchise. And I don't know. I found it, even though they got their plans pushed 2 years ago, they kept it in mind.
Yeah.
To still to go through with it and do it. And with talking about Moon at the top, I just thought it was appropriate to kind of mention that as well.
Yeah. You mentioned that, this was, you said, planned a couple years ago. So it was penned under the Nagy Pace regime. So to be fair, that was in the works for them. But you mentioned the history, this current regime has done a lot of stuff with history as well. They brought in, Charles Tillman, they brought in Richard Dent, they bring in the veterans that of Bears past to kind of talk to these guys. And I think they're really embracing that. And, I know some fans like, I don't want to hear that history crap, but it's important to the franchise. It gives these players a sense of belonging to something bigger than just the team they're on now. I think understanding the history of everything is good for these guys. And I think moving forward, it'll help them have that connection to like Chicago Bears and to the fandom.
Well, I think if you're not into history, like that's okay. You don't have to be, but then just don't say stuff like, this is the best pass rusher in franchise history. And it's like, you've never seen Doug Atkins. Like, let's just pump the brakes a little bit. Go watch some Doug Atkins film, come back and tell me what you think. Right. Like it's fine if you don't like the history, but don't say stuff that you can't back up.
Recognize it at least. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. What about you?
For me, I'm going with our guy Jacob Infante. He's at Jacob Infante 24. A couple days ago, he tweeted out, "I'm low key excited to see how the young Bears edge guys do in camp in the preseason this year. Dominic Robinson is a physical freak. Sam Kamara showed promise in 2021. Charles Snowden has some top notch tools, and Carson Taylor, who's an undrafted free agent, is a sleeper with some scary good college tape." And I want to talk about the edge guys a little bit because right now there's a lot of edge talk about Robert Quinn. He's not at camp. He could be on the block. I'm sure the Bears would trade him if the right offer comes, to them. I don't think they're in a hurry to do it because they want to make sure they maximize his value. But I think some of these younger guys that is mentioned here in this tweet by Jacob, that could be a reason why the Bears are probably thinking, oh, it's okay to trade Quinn because Quinn is 32. He probably only has 1 or 2 years, left in the tank at a pretty high level. They have Muhammad from the Colts. They have Travis Gibson from a year ago. So I think they're content with what they have up front, even if Quinn goes, because they know they have some guys in the back end that can come in and possibly surprise.
Yeah, I think that the idea that you're going to keep a good veteran at a pretty high salary on a team that is looking to find future contributors,
yeah,
and has some young guys that need reps. So we talk about opportunity cost a lot. And it's not just the fact that you're paying Robert Quinn a decent salary that you could otherwise save. Like that is dollars and cents opportunity cost. The opportunity cost to me is the snaps.
mm-hmm.
How many snaps are you going to give Robert Quinn? How many of those snaps could have been to help develop a Travis Gibson more, to help develop some of those other guys, to give them opportunities to get live game reps, to see if they're guys that you want to invest in the future. You're not necessarily ever going to find that out if you don't give them the reps. And so that's kind of the tank. Not that I don't want to say tank. I don't think the Bears are tanking.
No,
but the idea of a reset is that you don't need to waste snaps on a guy that you already know is good, but he's probably not going to be here when you're good. So it makes sense that the Bears would look to move him. Now, I don't understand why he wouldn't show up to camp unless he knows more than we do, right? Like, unless he thinks that this is going to happen. But the Bears don't need to make the move. They have the money. It's not like they people say, well, they don't have any leverage. They have the player under contract.
Yeah,
I don't know what we're talking about. Like, what do you mean they don't have leverage? They don't have to move him at all. And they can wait until the trade deadline. It's not like Robert Quinn's going to need time to ramp up to speed to go rush off the edge. He knows how to do that in any defense. So the Bears can be patient and wait for somebody that says, hey, we got off to a hot start, but we could use another pass rusher a la the Von Miller trade last year. What do you want for Quinn? We're all in this year.
I mean, I think that's the key with the guy like Robert Quinn is he never usually does OTAs anyway. He doesn't go to the stuff that's voluntary. Yeah, he's missing a couple practices that he should have been there for and I don't think he really cares either because he knows how to take care of his body at this point in his career. You mentioned the defense. He was in a similar defense when he was with the Cowboys. That was when Rod Marinelli was their DC. So he knows what he's getting in for. He understands the loafs. He understands the hits principle. He knows what he's in for with the Chicago Bears. So, once it's time to report, he'll report. He'll be there. And then when the Bears have a move to make, they'll move him.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the stat of the week. Caught up in a numbers game. I got a couple numbers for you: 22.2 and 96.3 million. That is.
Oh, okay.
So 22.2 million. That's the 5th most cap space remaining for 2022 in the league. And 96.3 million is the most cap space as of right now for 2023. So Ryan Poles is loading up to be active next offseason. And remember, if you don't spend that money this year, it rolls over for next year. And so there is rollover in that as well. But he's also put himself in a really good position for this upcoming August, right? So let's say somebody like Terry McLaurin in Washington or DK Metcalf in Seattle absolutely puts their foot down and says, no, I want out. I don't want to be here. And the team says, you know what? We don't need this headache. We're in our own process, whatever. We're gonna shop this guy. Bears could be in a pretty good position to be able to acquire a guy like that and pay him right away. And then I'm thinking about every August, something, the Josh Sitton situation, where a quality offensive lineman or key contributor gets cut for one reason or another. and it is made available, and there's opportunity on this offensive line, and Poles will have the money to be able to sign that player for this year and not have it hurt him this year or next year. And so there are plenty of he's got some arrows in the quiver left. That's all I'm saying, is that there's a lot of money here. The Bears are definitely going to be spenders next offseason, but they could still make some moves this season.
Yeah, I think that's the key is there are some moves to make this year. I mean, besides this, just a guy that could be looking for a trade, a guy like they could shake loose. The Bears also have a Roquan Smith extension that could be on the table. They can kind of pay him and have some of that money, be on this year's contract. They still do have to sign their top 2 draft picks officially. I think those numbers are everyone knows those numbers are. It's a set cap now what you're going to pay them, but they still got to get under contract eventually officially still. So, 22 million this year, what was it? 98.6,
96.3,
96.3. And it's crazy how they went from such a horrible cap situation. And it's funny because they're still dead money next year too. So those void years, some of that stuff you can't pay it all this season. So there will be still some Ryan Pace void year specials, hitting the cap next year. So, but the fact that he has so much in available to him, that's just a testament to what he did. I know a lot of fans aren't happy with how he built the roster this year, but it's not about this year. It's about seeing what you got and building it for next season.
Patience is a virtue.
Yes, it is.
in a restart. So what about you? What'd you come up with?
My number is similar to what you had earlier. I'm going number 41 because I wanted to also make sure we did talk about Brian Piccolo's retired jersey number. It just was so cool from the franchise and what they did there. And I did want to get your take. What's your take on retiring jerseys? The Bears really have no more room to retire them. At some point, they may want to put some numbers back in circulation. And I always thought a number like 41 would be cool to put back in circulation. You can have whoever chooses that number will have a patch to honor Piccolo. Maybe get him involved in the charity as well. I saw the numbers when I was on the site. The cancer that he died from years ago, at the time was almost a near fatal cancer. Now, I mean, it's you can survive that much more, and just that's the money going into it. So I think you put a number like that back in circulation. You have a patch on. It gives the guys on Fox or CBS they'll see it. They'll talk about it. It'll put more awareness out into the world about what's going on with that type of cancer.
Yeah, I think that for the players that have passed away, like they've been gone for a long time, right? I mean, you've got like number 5, George McAfee, right? So George isn't with us anymore. Maybe 5 can go back in, right? So there's something about maybe bringing them back in if they've been gone already. I'm kind of okay with a lot of those historical numbers because I don't think George Halas realized how long this was going to go, and at some point he's going to run out of numbers, right? And how big rosters would get, right? And George Halas was managing entire rosters with 20 players, so I think that there's some meaning there. I think that I like the idea of a little bit of a moratorium on numbers where when a really great player leaves and you just kind of don't use it for a few years.
Yeah.
And then maybe you put them up in the Ring of Honor for a new stadium. Yeah. And once he's up in the Ring of Honor, then you can maybe recirculate that jersey, put a patch on the player, and that's the guy. I think that there's something there. I know that some people would have a really big problem with a couple of numbers coming back into circulation. I'm actually someone who wouldn't. I don't actually think I'd have a problem with seeing all of the numbers come back in. But if you had to make a compromise that said, no one's ever going to wear 34 again, that's fine with me. The idea that like 7 shouldn't be worn, I actually think is really funny because the Bears had a number 7 that wore that number after George Halas for his entire career and then made the Hall of Fame, and Ed Sprinkle. George Halas was a good athlete. He played a little bit of Major League Baseball for the Yankees. He played for the Bears as a owner, player, coach. He was fine. He wasn't like this amazing player. He was an amazing coach and an amazing founder and someone who the NFL wouldn't have existed in this, continuous state without him. And all of the innovations that he brought, he was amazing for a lot of reasons, but he wasn't like the best player. And so, people that like, well, who's number 7? Oh, that's George Halas. Like that number does not associate with him. So I'd be fine with putting Halas's number back in there, but that's just me.
We left Hallis off our top 100 Windy City Gridiron Bears of all time because we only went with.
Oh, that's not true.
We didn't have Hallis on, did we?
Oh yeah,
Because are you sure? Because I thought it was players only. We decided only their
no,
playing
he's
careers.
in there, but he's not as high. He's a little higher than I would have put him.
Where did he end up?
He's
I know this was a big debate we had about putting players about like with him, and then with Dick's coaching career, obviously, and there's some others that have been kind of doing some stuff outside the Bears. So,
I do think he's in there. So why don't we?
We'll check on that. I'll
tell you what. We'll take a quick break.
There it is.
And in the break, we're gonna look it up, and then we'll come back.
Okay, nice. Is he in there?
I swear he is.
Because
I will apologize if I'm wrong.
Because I thought we left him off, and that was like a controversial debate.
I feel like I had him, like people were putting him up, and I was like, I don't think he's.
Do you have it there somewhere?
Well, it's on my phone. This is great live content.
People love it. They love the see the behind the scenes stuff. Plus, we're in a commercial break for our podcast audience. So all you guys watching on the video, make sure you do subscribe. It's Second City Gridiron. Hit that like button. We are trying to get ourselves to 1,000 subscribers by the beginning of the season. So that's our goal as a brand, is to kind of push this up there. And once we hit 1,000, we're going to actually put together a nice little Bears swag box, and we're going to ship it off to one of the people who have subscribed to us here.
So on my phone, found it. He is number 34 all time.
On ours?
Yeah, I think it's too high. I didn't have him up that high.
I think I might have left him off, and maybe I was very adamant about not putting him on because we're only going by his about their playing career.
Yeah,
and he wasn't the best of player. He was good, but
maybe he deserved to be on there. But I mean, like 30 spots lower.
Okay,
right? I don't know. I didn't write down time.
Make sure come out of break. You mention that for the podcast list.
Sure. All right. Well, nice. We can get back in if you're ready. All right, Lester, we're back. So for you guys on the podcast, he is on the Windy City Gridiron.
I was wrong. Yeah.
He is 34th overall. And if I remember the conversation, there were a couple of us that were pretty much like, that's way too early to bring him out. Like we need to you got to look at his playing career. He's not really worth that high of a ranking in terms of all the other great players. I mean, he's one slot above Harlan Hill, which you know how much I love Harlan Hill.
That's your guy,
and so that's a little high for George Hallis, but I don't know where he's at the Trib list or any of the other lists that are out there. I think
he was top 10 on a lot of their lists.
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, if you use obviously everything else, then he's number one.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you use his as a coach, as a GM, as all the innovations that he made, like he has the most impact on the game more than Peyton. Right. But as a player and just a player, 34 is too high.
It's a tough debate. I mean, if you're going to talk about them, then you got to talk about Dick's coaching. And then of course there's a lot of people that think Dick's coaching was bad, but he was the right coach at the right time when he got the team over the top. So you have to,
you got to give Dick a credit for at least that. But anyway, it was an interesting exercise. But I think that you and I were both like, no, I think we're too high on this. And I think a couple other people were like, it's George Hallis. He has to go up high. Like, okay, all right. So let's get into the three Bears here. So hot bowl of porridge for me, a guy that, and maybe I am just trying to hear it and want to hear it, but I'm going to give it to Thomas Graham Jr. because everything that I heard coming out of the minicamp was, hey, he looks like he's in the mix. And, the Bears signed Tavon Young to play nickel. And, this is a guy that's a good veteran presence that I think a lot of Bears fans, even if you don't know the name, you should be pretty comfortable if he ends up being the nickel corner. But everything that I am hearing and seeing and reading is, hey, Thomas Graham Jr. is making this a fight. And these two guys are going after it to start at nickel. And so I'm going to give it to Thomas Graham Jr.
We are talking about, again, minicamp, OTAs, there's no pads on yet, but like you said, he's in the mix and he has been starting at the nickel for the Bears, the last few practices at least is what they've been talking about. So, how great would it be if Thomas Graham could actually win that job? And it's also cool that, he's getting a chance to do it because, this is a brand new regime. Thomas Graham's not their guy, Tavon Young, free agent, it's their guy. This regime doesn't care. They're going to put the guys out there. You're all going to compete. May the best man win. And I think Thomas Graham, I think we all liked his tape when he was in college. You know, he of course he sat out, you know, the year for COVID. You know, that's kind of why he fell in the draft. But you know, great instincts. He's not the greatest athlete as far as, you know, pure speed, you know, but he's quick, you know, he's physical. And like I mentioned, his instincts is what stood out to me. So I think Thomas Graham, man, how cool would it be if he actually wins that nickel job and he actually goes out there and just, you know, thrives? That'd be great.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it. It'd just be great to just see some of these young players nail down positions so that you have fewer things that you have to worry about
Yeah.
going into next offseason. I think that's a major goal for this upcoming year. What about you?
For me, I'm saying the second. I'm going Jaquan Brisker, the rookie out of Penn State, second round safety. He's running with the ones all off season. You know, I mean, I figured he'd be a plug and play starter, but I figured that would probably take until about camp to kind of really establish himself. But again, he has the mental side down enough where the Bears trust him. You know, they believe in his skill sets. You know, he is a little more physical player than Eddie Jackson. They've talked about how he'll play more in the box with Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson said he loves playing with Brisker already. So, you know, again, he was their second pick they've made. He's already plugged in as a starter. I think that's great for this initial draft for the Bears.
Yeah, Brisker's a good one. I'm excited to see what he brings. Obviously, I'm also excited to see what that pick means for Dan Cruikshank and see if the Bears. It's my guess. If you had to say, Jeff, make a guess, I would say that the Bears are going to be in big nickel quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think that they're going to play three safeties, and I think that it's because Jaquan Brisker allows them to move pieces around a lot. And you want to see what Dan Cruikshank can bring on the field as well. Like this is a player that can be useful in certain situations, and so I want a path for reps for him. And the path for reps right now is in a big nickel situation. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Bears use that. There are some defenses that are a little bit more cutting edge that are running a lot of big nickel, and they're doing that because they can match up with those bigger receivers a little better. Like you throw a big receiver in the slot, Thomas Graham Jr. would lose in a height differential. You run out big nickel, and those guys have more length, and they can run with bigger guys. That's what you're looking for in that situation.
well, it's a tight end matchup. There are so many teams that have really good athletic tight ends, and then a lot of teams that run a double tight end set. So you want to have guys that can match up and cover those guys, whether he's an inline guy or a guy that's flexed off. And Cruikshank can do it, Brisker can do it, you know, Eddie Jacks can do it. So I think big nickel is a big part of the plan.
So the cold bowl of porridge. So on the other side of that, I actually I put a couple names because I wasn't sure how the show was going to go. I put Robert Quinn because I just think no show to camp just kind of stinks. But let's at least just acknowledge that Tevin Jenkins might have a cold bowl of porridge right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that he can't, throw it in the microwave and nuke it up and have a great camp when the pads come on. Like, I'm not saying that. I believe that he's a guy that's just a physical type of guy, and he's going to shine when the pads are on. But it's at least worth mentioning that he was running with the twos a lot, and I don't know what that means for his future. I'm not panicking on Tevin Jenkins yet, but at this point, I'm not heating up the porch for him.
Tevin Jenkins was actually on the No Name Football podcast with Olin Kreutz and Jason McKee. I heard that earlier today, and he was talking to them about it. He did not get into the benching or the running with the twos. The question was posed to him, and then Kreutz gave him an out. Said, "If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine." And Jenkins said, "I'd rather not mention it right now." But then Kreutz, of course, because Kreutz has played in the league, he knows how he would feel if he was running with the twos. So Kreutz kind of said how he would feel at this time, and Jenkins kind of agreed. So, I'm sure it's eating at him a little bit, but like I've been saying this in the last few weeks, once the pads go on, once he has a chance to go out there and show his physicality, I think he ends up winning that the job at right tackle. And I think Larry Borum is going to probably be your swing.
I think ideally that's what it is. I mean, that we talked about that for a while, right? I mean, asked the question specifically about Borum. I've said I think he's ideally a swing. I mean, maybe not saying that he can't start and do well and improve from year 1 to year 2. That would be amazing. Let's go. It just doesn't strike me as quite what they're looking for in terms of body type of tackle, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of Braxton Jones playing at left. And I think that Tevin Jenkins just has too much talent. Right?
Yeah.
I have a hard time seeing how he can't get there. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I mean, crazier things have happened in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly pulling for both of them to be contributors. I certainly want to see both of those guys be part of the plans, because the swing tackle is important. Swing tackle comes in and plays during the game too, even if they're not playing one of the left tackle, right tackle spot, they can come in as a sixth offensive lineman. I mean, those guys are valuable. You need them, and that would be great if Borum fills that role well too.
Another thing with Jenkins is they a lot of scouts thought he may be a fit at guard, but the Bears aren't ready to move him to guard yet. So that may happen in camp. Maybe Borum is maybe he's just playing so well they can't bench him right now. And if that's the case, and you have Jenkins and you feel he's also worthy, maybe you do kick him inside the right guard. I mean, I have a hard time seeing it happen just because he hasn't done it, but they want to get their best 5 on the field. And I just can't see a scenario where Tevin Jenkins is not one of their best 5 guys.
It'd be a very big right guard. But who did you have?
For my cold is I'm all secondary today. I'm throwing Kyler Gordon. He has not been practicing the last few OTAs and during the minicamp. So, the injury is there. They haven't really talked about it much. And as Bears fans, we have this thing where, these summer injuries, we're like, oh, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And all of a sudden, back surgery for Tevin Jenkins, leg injury with Kevin White. So, I mean, we've seen these guys in the past as Bears fans. So, I thought Gordon would be a plug and play guy at corner, but he can't get in the field. So hopefully this is just a minor setback. Hopefully he'll be back out there. I guess he's been doing some work on the side with the bike, staying in shape. So, but right now, Kyler Gordon is not able to practice, and that's not good for the secondary.
Yeah, let's just hope that that's not a thing.
Yeah.
All right, the just right bullet points for me, and a little bit, both sides here, is Matt Eberflus's new culture, because on the one hand, I think you're hearing a lot of what you want to hear. There's a lot. It's new. It's different. There's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, it's early and it's camp, but overall, it seemed pretty positive. Seemed like the players kind of into it. The stuff with the going to the Wrigley Field and hitting batting practice, home runs and stuff like that. It was cool. Like, I like seeing that team camaraderie stuff and all that. And then you've got the penalty for like hitting too aggressively, and they lost the practice, and people came out. They're like, "Oh, it was such a big mistake for a young first-time head coach." And it's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of experienced head coaches get that penalty from time to time. It's one of those things that happens, I think, everywhere, and they're now just emphasizing the rule. And I think they were told and they didn't back off, and that's why they got the penalty. Okay, yeah, maybe don't do that anymore. Slap on the wrist, you lose a practice. But it's also just like, it's what you expect, in terms of there's some hot, there's some cold, you put them together. It's just kind of what you'd expect out of a first year regime. Some cool stuff, some stuff that's kind of like, come on, guys. But overall, I think it's just been kind of an interesting experience to again cover a new coach and a new GM.
I think you mentioned the GM as well. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that. I mean, Ryan Poles, as much as I've been on board with most of his moves, he has had some missteps. There's some mistakes there. But I did want to mention real quick about the missing a practice, getting dinged, having a practice lost. There was a lot of talk on social media how there must have been a snitch. So, of course, the Bears fans right away, it's, oh, who was it? Was it this guy? The league has guys at all these practices. The NFL is the snitch. They have guys there.
Right.
So, it's like, come on, guys. It's like, you don't have to find a reason to make someone into the bad guy. It's just what happens. The Coach Lovie Smith got dinged this year. Ron Rivera got dinged this year. It happens because the NFL is looking for this kind of stuff. They want to make sure that the NFLPA is well represented, the players are taken care of, and this is part of it.
Yeah, it's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah,
and the players probably. I mean, I just listened to Mitchell Schwartz on Robert Mays' podcast on The Athletic talk about, like, yeah, he's basically like, I don't remember, or I don't know what it was like in the previous CBA because he came in a newer CBA, but it's written out there. And so, here we are and we're in shells, but we're hitting. It's like, I'm still getting bruised up.
Yeah.
I'm still getting beat up here. And so why is the plain reading of this language not being followed anywhere close. We're still hitting. We're just hitting with just
No
our helmets
pads.
on.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're not even wearing shoulder pads, but I'm still taking hits to my chest and shoulders and getting bruised up. And so, it was his contention, like, well, we gave up something for that, for that perk, for that piece of the collective bargaining, in order to get that written in, we gave up more money, or whatever it is. And that's a really good point that Schwartz was making. And so I think that they probably heard some complaints around the league, and those representatives that are at practices are like, hey, I'm going in with the focus on looking at this, and I'm going to report, I'm going to warn them, and if they keep doing it, then I'm going to write a report, and I'm going to tag them. Bears were one of a few teams where that happened. It is what
It
it is.
happens. It happens. It's nothing to get really worried about. The Bears will be fine.
Yeah, Bears will be fine.
Yeah.
What about you?
For my just right, I'm going to, it's all secondary today. I'm going Jalen Johnson for my just right. He wasn't present for the first couple voluntary OTAs. So when he does come into camp, he starts with the twos. Of course, Bears fans are all up in arms. Oh my God, they're benching Jalen Johnson. Within a matter of a few practices, he was back at his customary spot as CB1. He is the top corner on the team, and he will continue to be that. He's just too talented. We saw it as Bears fans the last couple of years. So Jalen Johnson, he's right there where he should be with the number ones.
Yeah, and big year for him. Like,
Yeah.
I've been seeing him on social media a little bit, being like, "Hey, man, start comparing me against the other number ones in the league, because
Yeah.
I'm going around and I'm traveling with these number one wide receivers, and look at my numbers. I'm doing pretty good." And he's right. Like, we need to start talking about him in that way. And if he can stay healthy, and he can continue his progression and his growth at that position, I don't see any reason why we can't start thinking about Jalen Johnson in very lofty terms as well. I think this is a very important and good building piece for this Bears defense that they're going to need as they rebuild this. I'm excited about the secondary. Not every category answers like you tonight, but it is one that we're going to have a lot of fun covering this year. Let's move on to the Fields report before we get out of here.
We haven't talked about Justin Fields this whole episode.
Well, you knew
crazy.
That the Fields report was going to come.
Yeah, I did.
So some days seem like the news was a little bit negative in terms of his performance at minicamp, which again, it's glorified 7-on-7 stuff. And then some days were really great. Like, he had really great sessions. He was this red zone session was, he was just on fire, things like that. I think the important thing to focus on is not necessarily like made up statistics in practice. It's he's getting all the reps. He's getting time with his receivers. He's establishing rapport. And everything sounds like, he's getting all of the reps, which thank you, Getsy, for not being an idiot and not giving him everything, because that's exactly what he needs. And then the one thing I wanted to mention about what I've took away from some of the reports, and some of it's like, okay, yeah, feel good stuff. But I'm really loving these Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields reports, where they just seem like they're BFFs now.
Yeah.
And even to the point where there was a story, and I'm sorry if I'm not relaying it correctly, but they're trying to outwork each other. So they're trying to stay in the facility, and Mooney says, I got to go get treatment, like soft tissue treatment or something like that. So I got to go to the training room. And so Fields is like, okay. And he does a little something, and then he takes off. He's like, all right, I worked harder than Mooney. Mooney faked going in to get treatment and then went and like lifted for another hour or something like that. Just this like fun little back and forth camaraderie. They're trying to outwork each other. This is Mooney's the guy that bought, the first paycheck, he bought a jugs machine, right? Like that's the kind of guy that he is. I think he maybe has found, a soulmate in this quarterback. That's special. That's something that I think we're going to see a lot more of. And that I try not to get caught up in those off-season stories too much, but I'm kind of digging it. Like, I'm kind of into this Mooney Fields connection.
Well, they connected last year, as when and they were good friends. They worked out a lot in the off season, and that continued on through the year, and then of course in the off season, and I believe they have another plan to work out again coming up in the next couple of weeks. I know they talked about how they're going to take a break, and I think they're right back at it. So they're going to go back at it. They're going to keep working at it. This receiving core, it's a lot of question marks there, but if Darnell Mooney if he becomes the guy the Bears seem to believe he will become, I mean, that's going to be huge with Justin Fields. That's his security blanket. That's his guy. I'm not saying it's going to be the next Devontae Adams, but there are only so few of those guys in the league at any time. Darnell Mooney is one of the top 32 receivers in the game today. Just keep elevating that, and the connection with the QB1 that can only help matters.
Absolutely. Anything that you picked up with Fields other than that?
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing. Just the kind of the stuff he's doing, off the field. I think that's really cool, really special. The stuff you mentioned earlier about when they were at doing batting practice. The team all rallies around each other. They're really excited for each other. Justin Fields, getting all the reps. He is the guy this year. Last offseason, he was the number 2. He was getting the 2 reps. He was the backup. Clearly, they had no interest in wanting him to start at all. He didn't even get a chance. It's a different mentality. He's an alpha. He wants to be the man. He's the man, and I think he lives up to that. And I think he's going to have a very nice season this year because of that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously, everybody's really excited about Justin Fields. No more than Justin Fields himself, I think, is ready to get on the field.
He can't wait.
Start to actually show and shut some of this noise up. Like, I'm really sick of hearing all this. Bears are going to be the worst team in the league. Darnell Mooney's not a wide receiver 2 or whatever the heck all that junk was from Dan Orlovsky and all that stuff. But we're going to start ramping stuff up here over July. We've got the Hopium Den that's coming out every Wednesday. There'll be, I think, 10 episodes total for that. Episode 3 is going to release Wednesday. I'm really excited for you guys to hear that one. That's the international fans. I've got some other projects that I am in the works on. We're trying to set up our fall schedule. We're trying to set up more video stuff. I mean, we've got just a ton of stuff going on, and we're really excited for bringing that 2022. Anything else you want to add?
We got a new podcast coming to the channel within the next few weeks. Taylor Dahl, who you guys heard on JB's last Hopium Den, she was on there. And
Hopium Den.
Is that what it is? Hopium?
Hopium.
The English language is not my friend. So. But anyway, it's we're excited to see what she does. We have some ideas. She has some ideas. So we're excited to have her show debut, and it's a different perspective, right now that we have on the site and on the channel. So we're excited to get her going and see what she can come up with.
Yeah, we'll have her. We should have her on one of these live streams here to kind of get her introduced into this game a little bit more.
Officially, exactly.
Yeah. We'll do that, and then we'll launch. We'll see if she'll probably launch the podcast around camp. So that'll be fun. Other than that, let's get out of here, and we'll see you next time. Until next time, bear down. All right, what do we got for comments?
Not a lot, kind of quiet tonight. It's a Monday night in the middle of June, so as expected. Someone says Hopium would be next level.
Well, that's my wife who says that. Hopium.
Oh, nice.
Hopium would be like a beer, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm not a hoppy beer guy.
I know.
And so you said Hopium, and I was like, oh, that could be like a companion show for Bears Over Beers, but it would be people that like IPAs, but not me, right?
You want your chocolate cake stout,
and I'm not drinking those as much because those are, it's like a liquid candy bar, right?
High in carbs,
yeah. So I'm trying to be a little bit, and it's summer, and so I'm into I'd like. There's this pale ale that is done by Toppling Goliath, is a Iowa brewery, and it's called Pseudo Sue, and I really like it. It's a good beer. It's got a good flavor. It's not too hoppy, but it's got a little bit, and I've enjoyed that. That's a good summer beer. But otherwise, I really do like cocktails more than I like beer anyway. So
that's good.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But
it's funny. When you're talking about beer, I actually right now the guy I do his show every now and again. Devon Booker. I just did a show this over the weekend. He actually from Kenosha area, like I am. He has a connection. We're going to do a live show at a local brewery coming up here sometime towards the end of summer. So awesome. We're excited. Yeah, we're excited to see how that turns out. We're not sure what it's going to be. It's we are over the Cheddar Curtain, so we're in Kenosha, but there are a lot of Bears fans at Kenosha. So hopefully, once we have some details on that, I'll put it on the site and I'll tweet it out and put it on Facebook and see if we can pack the crowd with a lot of Bears fans.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I don't know how far Kenosha is, but I'll have to see
It's
if
like 10 minutes over the border. It's like right there. I mean, the city
is for
downtown.
me.
Well, for you, yeah, it'd be a rough hop, skip, and a jump. Probably a 6-7 hour drive. But yeah,
What day are you thinking about
it'll
of
be
the
a
week?
weekend. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
weekend.
who knows?
So we're not sure.
Maybe we'll make a trip out of it.
Sounds good.
But all right, well, yeah, thanks, Blutarski, for the note on Piccolo and being big into civil rights and his relationship with Sayers is great.
It was. Yeah.
It's great to read about and learn about, and his relationship, Sayers' relationship with Butkus also, similarly just is really powerful. And we've watched that football life with the two of them. It's really powerful stuff. I mean, that stuff can bring me to tears pretty easily. I will get a little bit too invested in that kind of stuff, but yeah. Otherwise, man, I'm excited for football, but I really want to take advantage a little bit more of the summer
Yeah.
before we do.
Same.
So we'll continue to get some content out. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for everybody to hear this episode on Wednesday. And it was just a fantastic conversation. And there's more good stuff coming. There's just some really cool conversations that I've been able to have with fans. So
Nice.
looking forward to having you guys listen to that.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, we'll end the broadcast and get out of here. But thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.